I bought my Rivian R1T just over a year ago, and in that time, I've done my best to use this truck to its full potential. I've covered close to 18,000 miles over the past year, and 9,000 of those have been out on adventures. So what has stood out to me about this truck, good and bad? Keep watching to find out. This Rivian is the first EV that I've ever owned, and I gotta say, last year when I was looking at getting this truck, I was a little bit skeptical, but over the past year, I've been incredibly impressed. And in this video, I wanna get into a lot of things that I love about the truck. I'm gonna go into some things that definitely could be better and just share a bunch of other details that I think you'll find interesting. Let's get started. One of the first things I love about the R1T is it has so many places to store your stuff. There are a ton of spots all around this truck to store your gear. All right, so starting up front, because this is an EV, it's got a massive frunk. Right now, I've got some recovery gear and other essentials, but there's also storage in places you wouldn't necessarily expect. Up front, the front seat has a little storage bin here. You can put sunglasses or other smaller items in there. And then the second row also has a bunch of storage under the seat here. And then the R1T has this gear tunnel, which is an awesome space for camp chairs, tables, and other longer items, and I get a lot of use out of this. And since the R1T is a truck, it's got a truck bed, but there's also a storage compartment under the truck bed. Now you can put a full-size spare back here, which I normally have, but if it's not back there, you've got another space to put a bunch of gear. Next, I really appreciate all the thoughtful built-in accessories. There are quite a few items that come with the Rivian that are pretty useful. So in the truck bed, there's a built-in air compressor, and this has been a really useful feature to have. Anytime we're out off-roading, I generally air my tires down, and it's nice to have this ready to go here to air the tires back up when I'm ready. And then in terms of mounting a lot of the gear to this truck, the crossbars have been great. They're modular. You can use them on the top of the truck, on the truck bed. They even work on the R1S. They're also lockable, which is really nice. But this has been a super easy way to mount gear to the truck. And then there's two other cool items that I've really enjoyed. One of them is this camp speaker that's built into the center console. And then the other one that's small but really cool is this flashlight. This is built into the front door, and I've gotten a lot of use out of this actually. Another thing that's nice about the R1T is the option to have a full-size spare tire. Now this stores under the truck bed in the back here, and it's just a really nice thing to have if you're gonna be doing a lot of off-roading, to know if something happens, you've got a full-size spare ready to go. So next is this green forest edge interior. Now I was back and forth about getting the black interior versus this one. And after a year, I gotta say, I'm so glad I went for the green. It looks so cool, it's super unique. And the material itself has held up really well. I don't have any big wrinkles in the seats. In the back seats, I've put a lot of gear, slid stuff in and out. There are no scratches, and I've been really impressed with the durability of the material overall. This is definitely a color that I'm really happy I went with. All right, getting into the interior, one of the first things that's really impressed me is through all of the off-roading, washboarded dirt roads and trails that I've taken this truck on, it hasn't developed any squeaks and rattles in the interior. The fit and finish has been really good, and everything has stayed really solid. The next thing that I really love about the Rivian are all the different drive modes you can select from. So in all-purpose or conserve, the truck is really smooth and quiet on the highway. It's great for daily driving. You put it in sport mode and it's ridiculously fast. It honestly doesn't even make sense how quick this truck is. And then I've got a lot of use out of the off-road modes as well. There's a snow mode, there's a towing mode. But overall, it's really cool how much you can change the personality of this truck just based on what drive mode you have selected. And it's unique too. I really haven't experienced this in any other vehicle I've driven before. So next is camp mode. I've gotten a lot of use out of this. There are tons of features in here that are pretty useful when you're out camping. The level truck option is so unique and so cool. It basically levels your truck using the air suspension. And so with the rooftop tent on the back, I know we're sleeping perfectly flat wherever we go. Really, really cool feature to have. So this kind of ties in to the next thing that's been really awesome about the Rivian, and that is all of the over-the-air updates. So when I got the truck, I actually didn't have camp mode. It wasn't one of the features that was available, but it came a few months later in an over-the-air update. And in the past year, there have been a massive amount of these updates that have come through, introducing new features, fixing bugs, and it basically feels like every month the truck is just getting a little bit better, and it's really awesome. Again, something pretty unique. I know Tesla does something similar, but a lot of vehicles, when you buy them, you're kind of stuck with what you got, and it's cool to see this truck continually improving month over month. All right, the next one is the mobile app. Now, this has been one that I actually didn't like much when I first got the truck. There weren't many features, didn't work very well, but it kind of ties into what I was talking about before. It's been updated a lot, and there are actually a ton of useful features in here now. In the controls, I can open the hood, tailgate, the gear tunnel, some basic stuff there, but then I can also control the climate from the app, which is great. If it's really hot or really cold out, I can pre-cool or preheat the truck. I've got a lot of charging options that I can set from the app as well. The charge limit and being able to set that from the app is really convenient. I've been on trips where I'm eating or I have a little bit more time to charge the truck, and I already had a set limit, so I can bump that up a little bit if I need to without having to walk back to the truck. And then also you can turn on your security camera. You can see your vehicle's location and your mileage and a lot of other information just from the app. So this has been one that's grown a lot in the past year, and it's got a lot of useful functions. All right, finally, the Rivian charging network has been really solid. I've been to quite a few different stations in a couple different states, and I've always had a good experience. They've been fast, they've been reliable, and overall, it's just been really easy to use those chargers. So speaking of charging, leads me into one of my first pain points, and that is there aren't that many Rivian chargers out there yet. The infrastructure just isn't that big. I've been using a lot of other charging stations, which has been fine, but I just wish there were more Rivian chargers out there. They're really easy to use, they work well, and I'm hoping that network expands more and more as the months go on. Now, one thing that is going to change, the CCS plug that is on this truck is going to be replaced by the North American Charging Standard plug, which is basically the Tesla plug. And that's going to open up a lot more chargers. There'll be an adapter for these trucks from what I understand. So once that happens, I think some of the charging infrastructure issues are going to be alleviated quite a bit. All right, the next issue I have is more off-road related, and it has to do with the wheel and tire. So there's not a lot of offset between the sidewall of the tire and the wheel. This is the dedicated off-road wheel from Rivian, and the fact that it's so close to the sidewall makes it really easy to damage these wheels. You can tell I've got some pretty gnarly scrapes and some nicks in the paint here. I'm hoping over the coming months, the aftermarket starts to develop some good off-road dedicated wheels. I'd like to upgrade these to something that doesn't get damaged so easily and still looks cool. All right, next, let's talk tonneau cover. So when I first got this truck, I was really excited to have a hard, lockable storage that I could open and close with the push of a button. But like a lot of other owners, mine has jammed up and I'm not able to open it anymore. So I've kept it closed for the last 6 months. It still keeps my gear safe in the truck bed, but I really wish this thing worked the way it was supposed to. So while we're on the tonneau cover, that leads me into a few issues I have with the truck bed and tailgate. The first one is, even though there's a hard shell tonneau cover with a rubber seal, when you have the tailgate closed, you still get a lot of dust and water in the truck bed, and I was hoping it was going to be a little bit better in terms of weather sealing. So this closeout panel here does a good job of extending the truck bed, but it's got a little bit of a design flaw as well. When you close the tailgate, that part shingles on top of the tailgate inner itself. So what ends up happening when you close the tailgate is anything that's resting on here can dump into these openings. So if you're hauling dirt, or even if you just left something small on your tailgate, like I did with my key fob one time, it will just fall into these openings. I wish there was a better way to keep these closed out. So the last one is, when you're closing the tailgate, there's no handle here to grab onto. It's all just smooth. So you kind of just have to grab the body and close the tailgate. It's not always easy. You're grabbing paint, which isn't great. And I wish there was just a handle on this top surface here. It would make things a lot easier. All right, the next thing is kind of small, but it's a little bit annoying. And that is, there's no good place to put a large water bottle in this truck. Now, being an adventure vehicle, you would think there'd be a ton of spots for water bottles, especially large ones like this. I have to put it in the door here, but it doesn't fit great. It's been scratching the speaker a little bit, and I just wish there was a little bit better solution for this one. So this next one is definitely a little bit of an annoyance, and that is, there's no Apple CarPlay in this system. So any of the apps that I like to use on a regular basis, like OnX Off-Road, Gaia GPS, even Google Maps, I have to have my phone out and look at that to access those apps. I've got this MagSafe mount here that works fairly well, but it's blocked a little bit by the steering wheel. And ideally, I'd like to be able to just mirror these apps to this giant screen. So the next thing, I love having this giant screen. It can display a ton of really great information, but having to control everything with touch is not always the most convenient thing. Especially in the climate control, trying to aim these vents the right direction is really frustrating. I can never seem to get them pointed in the right direction. And there are some things I wish just had a traditional set of buttons, especially when you're off-road on a bumpy road. Trying to hit a tiny little button on a touchscreen can get really frustrating. So yeah, I'd like to see some traditional switches for a few key features that you use all the time. So this truck has a bunch of power outlets, and when I got it, I was thinking, wow, this is really cool. I can plug a bunch of stuff in here, charge things up. It's going to be really convenient. But I've run into a problem that is a known issue, and that is the outlets, when they're turned on, actually drain the battery pretty significantly. I've done some tests on this. It's in one of my other videos. But essentially, I've ended up not really using the outlets because of the battery drain. So this cool feature that should be something I use all the time is something I actually keep off most of the time. All right, so next is something that's not really a flaw with the truck, but it has taken some getting used to. And that is the way the Rivian performs off-road in these different modes is a little bit different than, say, a traditional four-wheel drive setup with lockers. Now, what's cool is there are a lot of options depending on the type of terrain you're on, but some of the rock crawling stuff that I've done hasn't been really extreme, but it's just a little unique in how you have to press the accelerator. It feels like some of the tires are slipping when they shouldn't be, and I'd love to see a virtual locker as an option in these off-road modes. Overall, again, it's not a huge complaint, it's just something that I've had to get used to. All right, one of the last ones. This stock controls the highway assist, which is like an advanced cruise control, but it's nothing like what you get in a Tesla, and it's been a little bit buggy. I haven't been able to fully trust it. It has gotten better, again, since I got the truck. It's been updated a few times, but it's still not at the point where I'd say it's competitive with some of the other vehicles that have this feature. All right, I want to touch on a few other things I've noticed. The first one is phantom battery drain. If you've had a Rivian or done any research on a Rivian, I know this has come up. I experienced it for sure when I first got it, and overnight I was losing way more battery than I should. But as the software updates have come in, it's gotten a lot better. I wouldn't say it's perfect because I still see some battery drain, but it's significantly better. I've actually done a few tests on this, and there's also a feature in camp mode that lets you essentially turn the truck off, and that does a great job of saving battery if you're not going to be using the vehicle. I've used this a lot on our previous camping trips, and it's been a feature that's been really nice to have. All right, another one I get asked about quite a bit is how many miles do I get with a full charge? Now, I generally don't charge the truck all the way up to 100%, but if I were to, I will just show you on this screen right here. Based on my driving history, now this adjusts based on your vehicle, in conserve mode with a full charge, I can get about 313 miles of range. So that is including having all the gear on the truck. I've got the tent on the back. I did a video on that. That definitely impacts the range a little bit. But overall, to be able to get over 300 miles on a single charge is really good. I really haven't had a lot of issues with range anxiety. I do, however, plan my trips out in advance, and that is a big part of it. It's something that's definitely different than if I were driving a gas vehicle. I did a whole video on planning an EV adventure, so if you're interested in how I plan my trips, check that out. But with a little bit of planning, I really haven't had any issues with running super low on charge or not being able to find a charging station. I do live in Southern California though, and I will say there are a lot of chargers around here. There are a lot of chargers in Arizona, in Nevada, so I'm definitely in an area where there are probably more charging stations than other parts of the country. But just speaking from my own experience, it hasn't been as difficult as I thought it was going to be. The biggest thing has really just been the patience when you are charging, to sit there for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to charge up. Definitely takes a little getting used to. I haven't minded it a lot, but I know for some people it's just too much. For me, it's enough time to go to the bathroom, stretch my legs, and get some food. And yeah, that's kind of been my experience with the range and the charging situation. All right, so in summary, this is the coolest vehicle I've ever owned, by far. It's definitely expensive, but all of the features, the performance, the off-road capability, it's almost like having two vehicles in one. And I've been incredibly impressed with this truck over the last year. There are definitely some growing pains and issues from Rivian that I've experienced as I've owned this vehicle, but I'm hoping those get better over time. And I'm really excited to see where the aftermarket space goes with this vehicle. I'd love to see some metal bumpers, a better selection of wheels. There's a lot of different things that I think are gonna start to come out over the next few years. And overall, I'm just really stoked to be in a Rivian, getting out on adventures in this new EV space. It's been an absolute blast. Thanks for watching, everyone.